So this is it, after 22 years and 2 highly entertaining shows. As of September 13th, with the last ever Grand Tour special coming out, we will no longer see this legendary trio on our screens anymore. For fans of Top Gear and the Grand Tour, this moment feels like the closing chapter of a story that has been as significant part of our lives for over 2 decades as any other unforgettable TV show. Jeremy Clarkson, James May and Richard Hammond, 3 names that to many of us have become synonymous with laughter, adventure and some of the most memorable television moments ever broadcast. It's hard to overstate just how much Clarkson, May and Hammond have contributed to the world of television. Together they took a humble motoring show and transformed it into a global phenomenon, captivating audiences not just with their knowledge of cars, but with their unique personalities, their camaraderie, and their ability to turn even the most mundane task into something hilarious and extraordinary. As we face the reality of their impending departure from our screens one final time, it is worth taking a moment to reflect on what has made them so special, why they've had such a profound impact on so many of us, and why they will always be remembered as television's greatest trio. The journey began back in 2002 when Top Gear was rebooted again by the BBC, but the original show, which had been running since '77, was a straightforward motoring program, informative but somewhat dry by today's standards. The decision to bring in Jeremy Clarkson, a journalist known for his sharp tongue and even sharper opinions, was a masterstroke. Clarkson, with his towering presence and unapologetically brash demeanour, was the spark that would ignite this show's new format. Joining him was Richard Hammond, a relatively unknown presenter at the time, who quickly won over audiences with his boundless enthusiasm, quick wit, and of course his endearing nickname, the Hamster. Hammond's love for speed and his daredevil nature made him the perfect counterpart to Clarkson's more ponderous musings, while his down-to-earth charm provided a relatable touchstone for viewers. James May, the final piece of this legendary puzzle, was introduced in 2003. May, who had been involved with Top Gear in its earlier iterations, brought a level of intellectual rigour and dry humour that perfectly balanced the often chaotic energy of Clarkson and Hammond. Nicknamed Captain Slow for his cautious and slow driving style, May's attention to detail and love for the technical side of motoring added a layer of depth to the show that elevated it from mere entertainment to something truly special. Together, these 3 very different personalities created a dynamic that was nothing short of magical. From the outset, it was clear that Clarkson, May and Hammond were not just 3 men presenting a television show, they were 3 friends who genuinely enjoyed each other's company, and their chemistry was the secret ingredient that would propel Top Gear to unparalleled success. What made Clarkson, May and Hammond so special as a trio was the chemistry that crackled between them whenever they were on screen. It was a chemistry that couldn't be manufactured or scriptured. It was the product of years of shared experiences, mutual understanding, and perhaps most importantly, a willingness not to take themselves too seriously. Watching them interact was like watching 3 mates down at the pub, albeit with a budget that allowed for supercars and jet planes instead of pints of beer. This chemistry was the heart and soul of Top Gear, and later the Grand Tour. Whether they were racing across Europe in absurdly cheap cars, trying to turn a van into a hovercraft, or embarking on one of their many epic road trips through some of the world's most remote and challenging landscapes, the joy they took in each other's company, and frustrations, was palpable. The constant banter, the good-natured ribbing, the exasperation with each other's quirks and failings, it was all part of what made them so endlessly rewatchable. Clarkson, with his towering presence and bombastic personality, often played the role of the provocateur, goading his co-hosts into arguments or pushing them into ridiculous situations just to see what would happen. May, with his more reserved and methodical approach, was usually the voice of reason, though he was just as likely to be the butt of the joke as the other 2. And then there was Hammond, the eager beaver of the trio, always up for a challenge and often finding himself in the most precarious situations as a result. It was this dynamic that made their show so much more than just car programs. Sure, the cars were important, and the trio's deep knowledge of and passion for motoring shone through in every episode, but it was the way they interacted with each other, the way they turned even the most mundane tasks into moments of genuine comedy and drama that kept us coming back episode after episode, year after year. Under Clarkson, May and Hammond's stewardship, Top Gear evolved from a relatively niche program into a cultural and global phenomenon. It became a show that appealed not to just car enthusiasts, but to anyone who enjoyed objectively good television. The format was simple, but effective. 3 blokes talking about cars, interspersed with a mix of challenges, road tests, celebrity interviews, and of course the occasional ridiculous stunt. But what set Top Gear apart was the sheer scope of what they attempted. No challenge was too absurd, no location too remote, no car too ridiculous for the trio to take on. Whether they were trying to turn a hearse into a family car, a car into a limo, or racing a Bugatti Veyron against a Eurofighter Typhoon, or attempting to even drive to the North Pole, Clarkson, May and Hammond approached each task with a mix of enthusiasm, sheer incompetence, and sheer bloody-mindedness that was entertaining as it was inspiring. To borrow from their legendary catchphrase, they were ambitious, but boy were they rubbish. The special episodes in particular became legendary. These were the episodes where the trio would embark on epic road trips, often in some of the most inhospitable and most remote places on Earth. From the treacherous mountain passes of Bolivia, to the frozen wastelands of the Arctic, from the bustling streets of Ho Chi Minh City, from the war-torn deserts of the Middle East. Clarkson, May and Hammond took us on journeys that were as much about the places and people they encountered as they were about the cars they drove. These specials are a testament to the trio's commitment to pushing the boundaries of what a motoring show could be. They weren't just testing cars, they were testing themselves, and in doing so they created some of the most memorable moments in television history. Who could forget the sight of Clarkson struggling to keep his Toyota Hilux afloat in the Mekong Delta, or Hammond nearly being swept away by the tide in a homemade boat, or even May painstakingly trying to navigate the treacherous roads of Romania in a Dacia Sandero. These were moments of pure television gold, made all the more special by the fact that, despite the sometimes obvious danger, the trio never lost their sense of humour or their sense of camaraderie. When Clarkson, May and Hammond left Top Gear in 2015, there was a sense of loss among fans like myself, with the trio who had become such an integral part of our television lives that it was hard to imagine a world without them. But any fears that their departure would mark the end of their on-screen adventures were quickly allayed when it was announced that they would be returning with a new show, The Grand Tour. The Grand Tour was, in many ways, a continuation of the work they had done on Top Gear, but with even more freedom to push the envelope. Freed from the constraints of the BBC, of which there were many, Clarkson, May and Hammond were able to explore new ideas, take on even more outrageous challenges, and travel to even more exotic locations. The format was familiar, but the scale was bigger, the stunts more daring, and the jokes more audacious. The very first episode of the Grand Tour set the tone for what was to become an equally legendary show as Top Gear was. Filmed in a tent in the Californian desert, it featured a spectacular opening sequence with hundreds of cars, jets, and even a massive crowd of fans cheering the trio on. It was a statement of intent. Clarkson, May and Hammond were back, and they were going to do things their way. Over the course of the next few years, the Grand Tour delivered some of the most ambitious and entertaining television of the trio's entire careers. Whether they were racing across the Namibian desert in beach buggies, attempting to build a functioning car out of wood, clay, or bones, or even navigating the treacherous roads of Colombia in a trio of mismatched vehicles, Clarkson, Hammond and May continued to deliver the kind of television that their fans had come to expect. But the Grand Tour was more than just a continuation of Top Gear. It was also a chance for the trio to reflect on their legacy and to explore new themes and new ideas. The show often delved into the cultural and historical significance of the places they visited, giving viewers a deeper understanding of the world beyond just cars. There was a sense that, as they moved into this new phase of their careers, Clarkson, Hammond and May were not just about making a show about cars, they were making a show about life, about friendship, and about the joy of discovery. One of the most remarkable things about Clarkson, May and Hammond is the way they each brought something unique to the table, yet together they formed something that is greater as a whole than the sum of its parts. Clarkson, with his towering presence and often controversial opinions, is the leader of the pack. He's the one who pushes the boundaries, who's not afraid to say what everyone else is thinking, and who, more often than not, ends up being the catalyst for some of the most memorable moments on the show. Richard Hammond, the youngest of the trio, brought a sense of adventure and childlike wonder to the proceedings. His enthusiasm is infectious, and his willingness to throw himself into the most ridiculous of situations, whether it's crashing a jet-powered car at 288 miles per hour or driving a tank through the streets of London. All these and more makes him the heart and soul of the show. But Hammond is also the emotional core of the trio, the one who's always ready with a kind word and a comforting hand when things go wrong, as they so often do. And of course, who can forget James May? James May, being the steady hand, is the one who provides the technical know-how and the attention to detail that grounds the show within the realm of reality. From classic cars to the latest cutting-edge technology, both of these things and more adds a layer of depth that sets Top Gear and the Grand Tour apart from other motoring shows, or even other Top Gear interpretations and adaptations. May is more than just Captain Slow. His dry wit and understated humour makes him the perfect foil to Clarkson's bombast and Hammond's enthusiasm. Together, these three very different personalities created a dynamic that is as compelling as it was endlessly entertaining. Watching them interact is like watching a well-rehearsed comedy act, with each member playing off the others to create moments of genuine hilarity. But there's also a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect underpins everything they do. And it is this sense of friendship that makes their shows so much more than just mere entertainment. The transition from Top Gear to the Grand Tour was not without its challenges. After leaving the BBC, Clarkson, Hammond and May faced the daunting task of recreating the magic of Top Gear under a brand with a different production team. The move to Amazon Prime brought with them a bigger budget and more creative freedom, but it also came with the pressure to live up to high expectations of their loyal and decades-long fan base. The trio had to find a way to retain the essence of what made Top Gear so beloved, while also evolving to meet the new standards of a bigger, better platform. One of the biggest challenges was redefining the format of the show. While Top Gear had a well-established structure with segments like the news and star in a reasonably priced car, the Grand Tour allowed for more flexibility. This freedom enabled the trio to experiment with new ideas, such as the tent-based studio format and the elimination of the celebrity interview segment. However, not all of these changes were met with universal acclaim, and the trio had to navigate the fine line between innovation and maintaining the core elements the fans had loved. The first season in particular saw a period of trial and error as Clarkson, Hammond and May worked to find their footing in this new, equally legendary landscape. Despite the initial teething problems, Grand Tour eventually found its groove. The show's more cinematic approach with grander locations and more ambitious challenges set it apart from Top Gear. It allowed the trio to push the boundaries of what a car show could be. The move to a streaming platform also meant that they could cater to a global audience in a way that was not possible before. While the transition was challenging, it ultimately allowed Clarkson, Hammond and May to evolve as presenters and continue to entertain audiences in new and all kinds of exciting ways. As the Grand Tour approaches its final special, it's worth considering the enduring legacy of both Top Gear and the Grand Tour. Over the course of 2 decades, May, Hammond and Clarkson have left an indelible mark on television and now streaming history. Their shows have become cultural touchstones, referenced in everything from comedy sketches to academic studies. The trio's impact on the world of motoring is immeasurable, having influenced everything from car marketing to the way automotive journalism is approached. But perhaps the greatest legacy is the way they changed the landscape of entertainment forever, proving that a show about cars could be as compelling and emotionally resonant as any drama or comedy. The global reach of Top Gear and the Grand Tour is a testament to the universal appeal of Hammond, May and Clarkson, where they have fans in every corner of the world, from the UK to the US, to even Australia. Their shows have become broadcast in over 200 countries. This international success is not just due to the trio's chemistry and humour, but also to their ability to connect with viewers on a deeply personal level. Whether they were navigating the treacherous roads of Bolivia or driving across the Arctic, the trio always brought a sense of adventure and discovery that resonated with audiences of all ages and backgrounds. And now, as we approach the final Grand Tour special, there's a sense of bittersweet nostalgia among fans, where it is hard to believe that this is really the end, that after all these years we won't be seeing Clarkson, May and Hammond together on our screens anymore. But rather than focus on the sadness of their departure, it's worth celebrating the incredible journey they've taken myself and everyone else on these wonderful 22 years. From the early days of Top Gear to the globe-trotting adventures of the Grand Tour, May, Hammond and Clarkson have created a legacy that will be remembered for generations to come. They have shown us that television can be more than just entertainment. It can be a source of inspiration, a window into different cultures, and most importantly, a way to bring each other together even at the expense of one another. They have made us laugh, they have made us think, and they have given us some of the most unforgettable moments in television and streaming history. As we say goodbye to this legendary trio, it is worth reflecting on what they've taught us. They've shown us that it is okay to take risks, to push the boundaries, and to never take ourselves too seriously. They have shown us the importance of friendship, of loyalty, and of always being there for each other, no matter what. And they've shown us that sometimes the most important thing in life is simply to have fun.
Track on my love.